What's up, assholes? So the ISL is adding like 65 plus playables, and here's why that is not a bad thing. I always see a lot of people talking about roster bloat. Grr, there's too many playables. 65 plus playables? Most of them are the same. That's true. Yeah, most of them are like pretty fucking similar. Giga, Carcharodontosaurus, pretty much twins. Styracosaurus, Diablo, Triceratops, 3 ceratopsians. Pretty similar. Then we got Rugops and Carno. Rugops is just a small little Carno, which, to be fair, they did differentiate it a little bit in the concept art, it being like a manhunter, which is pretty cool. But here is what I mean. Differentiation does not matter. With the 65 plus playables, obviously all 65 are gonna overlap a lot, right? It's impossible to make them all like super fucking unique, especially since they're animals that can't like shoot laser beams and then breathe fire and whatever. So coming up with ideas to differentiate them is kind of difficult, but that's only on a tip of the iceberg level. In reality, games can like be pretty creative even with like baseline features. One thing I'd like to note, using an example, is Herrera can dive a little bit, not for long. His oxygen's pretty low and then fishes on his diet, and the devs did that after they added Herrera. I guess they gave him dive and then people were using it to catch fish because its diets were ass, and then they put fish on its diet. Now it's like kind of semi-aquatic, sort of. It's arboreal, but it also can dive for fish. It's cool, you know? And just that small detail where it could dive, but it's not great at diving, it like sets it so far apart from smaller carnivores. Obviously it can climb, which is significantly much different than the other carnivores, but you know what I mean. What I'm trying to say is they can add as many playables as they want, right? It's not like they're making all 65 at once and that is what is hindering the progress of the game. The game is taking an insane amount of time because, first of all, this is kind of like a part-time, semi-full-time job for them, so they're not using up all their time making this game. And second of all, there is a lot of work that they're making for themselves. They're like going above and beyond with the animations and stuff and the mechanics. Well, at least they're trying to. And then some people like to complain about how humans are going to hinder the progress of dinosaurs being released, but I hope you realize there is a separate team of people working on humans than the dinosaurs. I'm sure some of the animators work on both the creatures and the humans. They've confirmed that it's like almost a completely separate team working on the humans in the game. Back to roster bloat, right? They're not adding all 65 plus playables on the official servers, and I think that is why most people complaining about the roster bloat, quote unquote, is such a problem, is because they don't realize that, and they think that some playables are going to be completely unused because this one playable is added. They're adding all these playables in the future, right? They're one by one, they're gonna roll in. Not all of them are going to be added on official. They're going to hand select maybe like a quarter or a third of that actual 65 and then actually put it on official. Not every single one is going to be seen on official. They mostly exist because the developers are trying to give unofficial servers like a sandbox of things to add to their servers. That is essentially what they're trying to do. So for all we know, we're going to get Diablo and Triceratops as the ceratopsians on official servers, and then Styrak is probably just going to be a sandbox creature. That doesn't mean it's not going to be as in-depth as those two other playables. It's just that it's another playable that unofficial servers can choose from when creating a server and choosing what playables they want to be used on their server to create their own custom ecosystem that they want to see. Personally, I don't see the 65 plus playables being an issue at all. I think the more the merrier. That's just more content for us. Why are we complaining? And then the potential for unofficial servers is pretty much endless when they add all those creatures and continue to add them. Unofficial servers could like cycle out certain creatures and do like seasonal additions, like, oh, this week we have Triceratops, and then next week Triceratops is disabled and they have Styrak, right? Maybe Gigas are only available on Fridays, and then the rest of the week it's Carcharodontosaurus. And then that way servers can create like an influx of certain rarities of creatures, and then that would increase a desire for nesting. So maybe some creatures you can only acquire from nesting if that creature is disabled on a certain day of the week. The creativity for unofficial servers in the future for selecting certain creatures to build their own ecosystem is pretty much unlimited, and I can't wait to see it. Just like your unlimited ability to click the subscribe button, just saying. Button's right there, it's free, you know what I'm saying? I know you're scrolling through my videos and shit, watching all my news and discussions, so, you know, just go ahead, click it, it's right there, please. I need you to, please. Don't let goldfish win, just saying. Back to the roster bloat. or the lack of roster bloat, I mean. The only issue I have with the roster at the moment is that there are only 2 flyers. I brought this up in another video. The only 2 flyers are Pteranodon and Quetzalcoatlus, which is kind of stinky. They have like a plethora of flyers that they could add, and adding 2 of them kind of feels, you know, unfortunate, because there's a few herbivorous flyers they could add, which would be very interesting. I understand Pteranodon and Quetzalcoatlus are kind of like the baseline, but I feel like there's no middle ground, right? Pteranodon's tiny as shit. Quetzalcoatlus is fucking huge. So we have a mini tier, and then we have like an apex tier, like with a huge gap in between. Personally, I'd like to see Tropeognathus. 1, it looks cool. 2, it looks cool. I'd like to see Pelagornis, Argentavis, Hasteagle even. I know those aren't like flying reptiles, but who gives a shit? Maybe when modding comes around eventually, you know? But yeah, other than that, I think the roster they have planned is pretty fucking solid. There's a good amount of variety, and I feel like they fill the niches pretty well where it is needed. Definitely a lot of overlap, but like I said, that's fine. Not all of the creatures are going to be on official server. So roster bloat, don't worry. It doesn't matter. Do not complain about them adding more content, alright? Because it would suck after waiting like 10 years for this game, right? But another 10 years or some shit down the line, game's actually done, right? But there's only like 30 playables in the game, right? That's still a good amount. Don't get me wrong, but wanna know it would be a lot better than 30 playables? 65, right? You know, you catch my drift, you know? So let's just stop complaining about shit that doesn't need to be complained about. Although I do understand why people are complaining about it. It doesn't make sense if you're seeing it through a certain perspective, like, oh yeah, there's gonna be 65 fucking things on official server. That's kind of crazy. But just to broaden everybody's mind, they're not. Do not worry. I promise. You're gonna be fine. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Peace. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.